But the vast majority of the folks who get involved in the web design industry using the SiteSwan platform have never built a website before. So what you really have to do on a minimum price point is about $500 up front and about $50 per month. That would be what I consider the minimum. I don't suggest anyone starts out below that, but we have plenty of people who are charging over $1,000, over $2,000 for the sites, for the markets that it works well for, and over $100 a month just for the site itself. A gentleman who joined us without prior experience and then sold almost 100 sites over his next 6 months.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Hey, Digital Trailblazers, this is Leah Ray Getz, and with us today is Justin Gerena. Justin, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and let them know what you're all about.
Sure. My name is Justin. I'm from SiteSwan Website Builder, which we founded in 2011. We help entrepreneurs and other folks who want to start their own business create their own web design agency with a recurring revenue model that will help them supplement their income, build some retirement income, or just help them make more money.
Well, those all sound very nice. So for those who might not understand some of those words that you use, can you break that down a little further and what that actually means?
I'd be happy to. So the world of web design is kind of interesting because every single business needs a website. But the shocking reality is that just shy of about 50% are in a situation where they don't have a website or they don't have a good website. And that's a real big problem that unfortunately is difficult to solve, and I'll tell you why. So the majority of small businesses are not in a position where they can effectively build their own website. So all the commercials we see on TV about, oh, do it yourself, build this awesome website for yourself. The harsh reality is that when you actually go in to start doing that yourself, which perhaps you guys even know a little bit about from managing your own site or sites, it's a headache. And this has long been a problem, which is why when we founded SiteSwan back in 2011, we were solving the exact same problem we're still solving to this day, which is an affordable solution that will enable a typical small business to be able to get online with a very professional website at a price they can actually afford. You know, there's lots of agencies who are out there and they can't even build a site for a small business. A pizzeria, for example, for less than $3,000 to $5,000, just because that's what they need to get in order to cover their expenses, costs associated with managing a site. And that's where SiteSwan comes in, because people will utilize our platform to build essentially $3,000 to $5,000 sites that they can actually afford to sell for less than $1,000. So the business is able to spend less than they would have to otherwise. And then individuals, everyday people who want to work from home and start their own business can actually be the people responsible for building out those sites, maintaining them, and actually make money in the process.
Yeah, I remember back in, I think, first website we built for our business, I think I started it in 2015, and it was a months long process. We had to buy an online course that was several $100s. And when I say months, it wasn't just tinkering on it here and there. It was like full-time work trying to figure out how this works. WordPress and all that stuff, and domain hosting and everything else. And it still took months to do. And when it came out on the back end, it was okay. And then, every time we wanted it redesigned, it's like, okay, I'm not doing this myself. We'll pay somebody else. I think the first time we had it redesigned was like $1,500. And the second time we had it redesigned was closer to $3,000, like you were saying. And yeah, it's not cheap and it's not easy to get a really good looking website that's functional, that's not bogged down with slow load times and things like that. So I know that's a really valuable service for people. And there's still a ton of businesses out there today that don't have websites. For example, like I was just this last week, I was looking for auto detailing, and I was looking them up on Google, and there's these companies that have a bunch of good reviews that they're ranking in Google, but they don't have a website. And so, I found myself going to the ones that do have websites to kind of filter down who I want to contact even. And so it is really important for a business to have a good website if they want your business. So the part that I'm wondering about is the white labeling part, where you help people to create their own website, or to create an agency where they are creating websites for other people. The first question I have is, do you need any sort of design experience or technical experience? Like, what kind of experience do you need to be able to do something like that?
Good question. And that's a question we get all the time. And the short answer is that you don't need any prior experience. We do have a good number of people who come to us every single month with some experience building sites, whether they've attempted to build a site on Wix or WordPress, as you mentioned before, or some other platform that they experimented with. But the vast majority of the folks who get involved in the web design industry using the SitesOne platform have never built a website before. Some of them do come to us with some sort of sales experience, because it is something that if you have the sales experience of, especially working with a small business owner, this fits in beautifully to the experience that you bring to the table. Because, and I'll tell you something very specific about using a platform like ours to be able to build sites. And that's the idea of being able to show someone something before they buy. So we call it the show and sell technique. And that is something that works in so many different ways throughout your everyday purchases and buying decisions that we all make. I remember just recently I walked into Costco and there was someone there with a free sample of a food I've never tried before, and I would have never tried it or picked it off the shelf until they handed it to me, and I tasted it and I handed one to my son. I'm like, I'm sold. I'll buy one. So the idea of being able to see something before you buy is incredibly important. And when you're using a platform like ours, that's what enables, whether you have sales experience or not, whether you have site building experience or not, the ability to actually do this and do this well.
The before and afters, for any business, they're so important. For example, like the auto detailing thing again. The things that really sell a person are when they can see a car that's in horrible condition right before they start the process, and then show a picture of after they're done, and this is, the car looks almost like it's brand new, right? And even for, when we do sales calls for the people that are coming into our program, a big part of our sales call process is drawing that clear contrast between their situation right now and their situation, what it could be in 3 or 6 or 12 months from now when they've implemented our systems and they're getting the result that they want. That before and after. And it's going to be the same thing with having an agency where you are building websites for people. Your business now versus what it could be if you had this amazing website that details your services, that attracts customers, that gets them contacting you. That's an important part of any sales process. So my question would be, I know how long it took me to build a website. If you're going to show somebody this before and after, how much time do you have to put in to, giving them that preview or that demo of what their website could be?
About a minute.
Oh, wow.
And that's something that we realize is critical in the space of running a business. Time efficiency is incredibly important. In the world of sales, you need to be able to jump from one opportunity to the next. One of the things I think everybody knows when it comes to selling anything you've ever sold before is that you are only going to get a certain number of yeses out of a group of calls. So if you make 50 calls, you might get a few yeses, but you're not going to get a yes on your first or your second or your third or your fifth or your eighth, most likely. So how do you get to the point where you can effectively get through a lot of people very quickly to be able to get to that yes? And then when you do get to that yes, don't let that bog you down. to the point where you can't get more than one yes in the same day. So we have something called instant site creation, and it's based off of the logic that we have over 300 themes for all different industries, including car detailing, which, by the way, is a beautiful theme of ours. So, like, for example, if you were using our local prospecting tool, which is a feature that allows you to be able to see which businesses in your area do or don't have a website. So you could actually conduct a search in your neighborhood for an auto detailing business, find them on the list, see that they clearly don't have a site, and click Create Site. Choose the industry that they are in, and then within less than a minute, you'll have a site that's pre-populated with all of the information about their business, including their business name, their address, their phone number, their email address, everything, along with professional images and a beautiful layout and up to 7 pages of content that's already done. So what that means is that you can actually say to someone, hey, John's Detailing, I've got a pretty good idea about a new website for your business that I think you're going to love. I've been working on it, and I was wondering, could we have a couple minutes on the phone this week so I can show it to you? That's a pitch that no business has ever gotten before. Well, unless they've been contacted by a SiteSwan reseller. Because traditionally, the idea of building out something for free in web design is unheard of. It's just too much time and energy has to go into it for anyone to justify that in their sales process. But when you can say, hey, I've got something designed, I'd love to show it to you. How does tomorrow at 11 a.m. sound? I'll call you, we'll go through it together. I'm so psyched to show it to you. Now, you don't actually need that much time to build it out. So what our resellers would typically do is they'll make those types of phone calls during the day, and then after hours, or at a time that's convenient to them, they will quickly build out the sites one after another, and have them all lined up and ready to present the following day or even later that day. So it's kind of interesting because again, it goes back to the show and sell technique. Anyone can call and say, I've got an idea for a website, but they're going to have to finish that thought with, now leave me a deposit of $1,000 so that I can show you something. As opposed to, I'm doing something totally for free for you. And it's cool because you get instant credibility with that. You know, and one of the questions you'll never have to answer if you're in the world of web design selling websites is, can I see your portfolio? You know, that's something that anyone new to this industry or any industry, right? You talk about before and after. Imagine getting into the car detailing industry and having never worked on a vehicle before with before and after photos. It's going to be difficult to get your first client. So the idea of a portfolio is something that feels like you absolutely have to have in the world of web design. But I'll tell you why you don't have to have it. When someone asks you that question, can I see your portfolio? The quick answer is, I'll do you one better. I'll show you exactly how I envision your site looking. I could show you some other sites, but those aren't for your business. I want to show you something that's going to be for your business, because the best way for you to judge my ability to do something good for you is to show you what I'm going to do for you.
So I'm curious, like, how did you guys decide on this type of model? Like, where did this start? Because it's a very interesting place that you've landed.
Yeah, so it's funny. My now business partner and I, we met in college, and we kind of commiserated over the fact that being from Long Island, New York, if anyone's familiar with the area, it's a suburb of New York City. So if you want to have a career in business, you are going to have to go to the city. Now, what a lot of people don't realize about the way Long Island is structured is that it is a painful commute back and forth to the city every day. It drains you of all life, energy, and desire to exist. And the problem is that it's such a time suck and it's such a painful experience that it dissuades a lot of people from even getting into business or a lot of the industries that require you be in Manhattan for. So he and I were looking at each other in a business law class and being like, I don't want to make this commute every day. We've got to figure something out, because that's not something we want to do. So we knew it right away. As you know, we're sitting in college saying this, like, we knew that corporate life was not for us. Long story short, we got into building websites for small businesses. Just we kind of stepped into it. And we were doing the same exact thing I just described to you, charging $3,000 to sometimes $7,000 or $8,000 for a small business website, struggling to get the sales. And then after, I forget how many that we had sold, we said to ourselves, gosh, there's got to be a more efficient way to do this, because of the fact that every business essentially needs the same stuff. They want to tell the world who they are, what makes them special, how to contact them, put their best foot forward, and make it easy for people to access their data and their information. So when we realized we were doing the same thing over and over again, having to charge all this money for, we're like, this seems a little crazy. So when we realized there wasn't a better way, we decided we had to build it. So luckily for us, we were familiar with a few people who were really good at coding and development, and we teamed up with them to get a working model done. And eventually we launched SiteSpawn, which was a very rudimentary version of what it is today. But of course, as you know, in the world of business, you launch what's absolutely necessary to start, and you build upon it as time goes on. Along the way, you discover a lot of fun things. And that's exactly what we did.
So you do launch this knowing the white labeling was going to come in the future, or did this kind of just happen naturally?
Yeah, that happened naturally. We were just using it for our own purposes. And kind of at the same time, we got introduced to and started developing relationships with a group of community newspaper publishers, folks who were running like penny savers and shopper guides and things of that nature. And we started doing some work with them. And what was really interesting at the time, and this is again 2010s, is that the majority of the people who were advertising in print, spending $400 to $1,000 a week running ads in print or more, the majority of them didn't have a website in their ad. And we said, that's weird. Why would they not put a website in their ad? They realized it's because they didn't have one. So even the people who were like, essentially what it came down to is like, we realized two things. Like one, they're either overspending to compensate for the fact that they're not getting any search results because they don't have a website, or they just don't know any better. The fact that they could be accelerating or amplifying all of their marketing efforts with a website. You know, Todd, one of the things you mentioned earlier about the reviews thing, right? You could see reviews for businesses online, but there is also this element of, I want to get a feel for what this business is about. And the only way to do that without stepping face to face with the business owner or walking into their place of business, which most auto detailing shops don't have, is to give them a virtual place to do that. And I always describe the small business website as the hub of the marketing wheel. So picture like a bicycle tire, and then in the middle is the hub, and that is the website. And all the spokes coming out of the hub are all the different marketing initiatives that business has. So everything from text message marketing to social media marketing to email marketing to the reviews to whatever else they might be doing, print advertising, all these things. Because all of those things can be so much stronger if they are connected to the hub. The wheel can't spin without the hub. And if you had a bunch of spokes without the hub, that's a really awkward bicycle ride. So that's the really interesting thing about this, and was compounded by the fact that once you own that relationship with the client, with the website, they immediately think that you are their go-to person for everything else that stems to and from that website. So what I've personally found, and what our clients tell us all the time that they find, is that they become kind of a marketing consultant just kind of naturally, because something will come up and they'll say, oh, I want to start collecting email addresses from my website. Set that up for me, please. Okay, cool. So let's get you set up with an email database, and it's X amount of dollars to do that upfront and a recurring fee. And then, oh, well, what are you going to send out? Don't you want to actually send out some nice looking emails? Why don't I help you with that? Next thing you know, now you've added on an additional service that you would have never otherwise gotten a phone call about unless you had that relationship with the website first. And the same thing goes for reputation management, with reviews, same thing goes for text message marketing, for local listings, for all the different stuff that people do. The business always has this mentality that it starts with the website person, as long as they like you. And that's usually very beneficial.
Yeah, like you said, I think there's a ton of advantages to being able to show somebody the website that you're going to build for them first. It just occurred to me that if I'm contacting somebody and all I have to look through is a portfolio of other people's websites, like I can kind of give them an idea of what I want and what it should look like and the things that are in there. But inevitably, when they build it, there's always going to be things I'm going to say, no, I don't like the colors, or I don't like this design. Could you do this? And there's a lot of back and forth. But that advantage of being able to show them the website first, and then they say yes. Well, now you've already got a product that you know that they're going to be happy with before you've even put any time or effort into it. So I feel like that eliminates a lot of that back and forth that you might have with a normal website developer.
It does. And let me tag it one thing, Todd, and thanks for bringing that up. So what's interesting about the process of showing someone something before they buy is that there is an element to it that's super important, and that's what we call the website presentation. So what we encourage all of our resellers to do, which is a very simple formula, is you walk through all the elements of the website. And you don't just point them and say, that's a red navigation bar and that's a button that you click. You explain you spell it all out for them. Say it out loud. Explain what each and every element is and then why it's there. And if you go through that process of explaining to someone why things are the way they are, all of the thoughts that they had of, wait, is there a better way to do this? Is there a different way to do this? Immediately exit their minds, because you have essentially justified every design decision that you have made. And what that ultimately means is you get a lot fewer requests for changes and modifications when you're done with the presentation. So that's a great way to do and sell a website, is to make sure you go over everything, and it will pay off big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we'll sometimes hire people from Fiverr to do a logo or little cover design for a PDF or something for us. And there's always just so much back and forth, right? Either that or I ask for the source file so that they can come up with the first version, and then I'll just edit it the way that I want, because I don't want to have to bug them again for another revision, right? So other questions that are coming to my mind. So the SiteSwan, is that its own thing, or is it built, are you building a WordPress site or a Wix or something else? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a proprietary platform. We built it from the ground up here in the States, and it's a full content management system and everything. There are no elements of any other platform that it is based on, and it's also not open source, which is something that some people who are used to the WordPress experience might first question and say, wait a second, where am I filling my plugins? And you realize that, oh, wait, all the stuff that I generally need for a small business, it's already built in. And the idea that it's not open source is very attractive too, because then you don't end up with all these third-party plugins you have to constantly update every single time you log into WordPress. That used to drive me nuts. I love WordPress for its versatility and what you can do with it, and it's amazing. The stuff you can build with it is phenomenal. But when every single time you have to log in and seemingly update something, that can be a frustrating experience, especially when nothing about your site is changing. You just want it to continue working, and you have to make all these updates. So the platform is totally proprietary. It is closed source, you might say, and that has really benefited us and our resellers big time, because when we have full control over exactly how things work behind the scenes, it allows us to be able to roll out features very quickly. It allows us to be able to roll out enhancements very quickly and not have to worry about all these third-party elements that could potentially interfere.
Yeah, so with SiteSwan, I'm sure if somebody's thinking about, okay, this might be something I could white label and that, I could start an agency, probably a lot of the things that they're wondering about is, for example, that thing that you mentioned about adding the capability to gather email addresses and contacts and leads from your website. Like, some people may have no idea what that would even entail or how that would work. They've got no technical ability or very little technical ability in the past. How would they even go about learning that? Or do you have training that you offer to people to help them get their agency up and running? Or is there training about how to use SiteSwan that they can go through? Do they have people that they can contact for support? How does that all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So oftentimes, I just remember this one conversation that my sales rep had with a potential reseller not too long ago. And the question was, why should I use SiteSwan when I can use another website platform that I know about? And it's a great question. And the follow-up was that, I don't know anything about web design, but I don't see how your platform's any different. And that's, that says something about, number one, perhaps we need to fix our messaging a little bit. But what it also, the response that my sales rep had was, well, if you have never built a site before, you should make sure that the platform you're using is designed for someone like you. And what I mean by that is that we have a 30-day, 13-step training program that sounds very intensive, and it is in terms of its level of detail and thoroughness that we have, but it does go by very quickly. You can consume all of it in one day if you wanted to. We spread it out over 30 days, so we give you tasks and things like that you can become better at. And you will become a very, very, very efficient web design professional inside of 30 days. If you go through this training, and you will do just fine. On top of that, we have recently released our launch plan, which is basically a 14-day sprint to get your first client. It's really cool because we outline very specific steps that you can do, everything from social outreach to warm outreach to cold outreach. And it's built so that it can be used over and over again in a cyclical fashion. So every time that you wanted to populate your funnel, so to speak, or get some more leads in the door, you can go through this 14-day sprint and be able to do exactly that. In addition to that, we have all US-based support that is all same-day responses for the most part, making sure that everyone has exactly what they need. And people will often say to us, well, that's great. I talked to your tech support guy. I'm like, whoa. We don't have any tech support people. We have web design business support people. Our support people can answer any question, not just about the technology and how the platform works and how to do whatever you need to do on a site, but also about sales and the marketing. And sometimes even we find ourselves offering motivation to our resellers, because if this is the first time you're starting a business, you need sometimes to get back into the right mindset and be reminded of why I'm doing this and who I'm doing this for and what's my end goal. And sometimes you can get caught up in the day-to-day or the nitty-gritty or just having a bad day. And our support team is actually trained to be able to also assist with that as well. So yeah, we take you from, launching your very own site that talks about the fact that you sell websites now, which is, by the way, included. We offer that to all of our resellers. We build it for you. We drop it into your account. All the way up through scaling past 100, 200 sites. What do I do when it's time for me to hire a designer? How am I supposed to find a salesperson? How should I pay them? How should I incentivize them to do more? Should I have a bonus structure? How big is too big of a team to have? All these questions we have answers to because of the fact that we've been doing this for 13 years and our own experience from launching and growing our own 6-figure marketing agency has played a key role in being able to, fill the gaps where our resellers are kind of asking for that help.
So I know that one of our biggest criticisms of other, trainers or, quote, gurus in our industry is that they will often teach you how to do the thing, right? Like they'll teach you how to create a course. They'll teach you how to create a coaching program. They'll teach you how to do this, that, or the other thing. They'll teach you how to create the business, but then they don't teach you how to get customers or clients, which is really the more important thing, right? So often we'll have people coming into our program that they've got a course. They've already bought one coaching program from another guru, and they've got the course created, they've got the coaching program created, but they've got no clients. And they've been struggling for months or even years with no clients or just a trickle of clients because they've been trying to figure that part out for the longest time. And so often we find that that's like the biggest thing that we're helping people with is just that whole marketing piece.
Yeah, and 2 weeks ago, we had a reseller who was interested in joining, And they said, I have already sold my first site. And I said, what the heck are you talking about? They said, well, I watched your YouTube videos and I watched some of your training about selling websites to small businesses. And I was able to do it by just using some of your themes that I found on your site. I was able to put something in front of a client. I did a little Photoshop work and I had a sale. So I'm walking in the door of my first sale. I'm like, that's so smart.
So what is the process that you teach people, in a nutshell, about how to get your first clients or how to make that first sale? What's a process? Because I'm sure a lot of people, they've got no idea of how to even start. Maybe they think that, okay, well, I know so-and-so's got a business, or I go to this business all the time and I know the owners, I can maybe contact them. But aside from that, they may not know what to do or even how to go about that. What are some first steps that you can give people to start getting a customer to?
Good question. So if you're already on board and you have the ability to use a platform like ours to be able to build sites in a snap, what you are going to do is start with a social media approach. And it's as simple as posting onto your own Facebook page, hey, I've started a web design agency and I'm offering my first 10 clients an absolutely free website design setup fee. All it is a small monthly recurring fee to keep the site live. Tag a business you know or reach out to me and I'll set you up with that site right away. That's the very first thing we recommend people do when they have access to the platform. Whether you have access to a platform like ours or not, the second step is something you can do, and that's doing warm outreach. So warm outreach is going to be basically taking out your phone, going to the contacts list and scrolling through it. You're going to reach out to as many people as you feel comfortable reaching out to for apparently no reason. And the message you were texting or calling them with or emailing or whatever is kind of similar. It's saying, hey, I started my web design business recently. I'm really excited about it. I'm looking to build up my portfolio. And if you know anyone who might be in the market for a website, I would love if you could refer them to me because I think I'd be able to help them at a very affordable price. What's cool about that approach is you're not actually asking your network for the sale. And that's something I think a lot of people who get into business think they have to do is sell to their friends and family, but that's definitely not the case, especially with businesses because, maybe like a coaching thing, you could think, well, everyone needs a coach. But when it comes to a website, not every person needs a website, although every business does. So, in my network of immediate friends and family, there's only one business owner. So I would reach out to them to see who they know or who they could refer me to. And you'd be surprised at how many people are connected to, and if they're not connected to a business owner, so long as they're a manager of a business or even work in a small business, they could be very influential to that business owner. I have a friend who was working for a banquet type company on a very small scale. It was like farm based. So it was capitalizing on all the people who want to get married on a farm and do rustic stuff and things like that. And the owner was basically a silent owner, like never present. She was running the entire operation. And she was like, I'm getting so frustrated sending people to our website and then the thing's breaking or it's shutting down or it's not SSL certified, whatever. So we could totally help you with that. And we did. And it's a beautiful site and it completely changed how things are operating there. And we didn't even have to work with the owner to get that site sold because she was empowered to make a $500 buying decision and then whatever we charge her, $50 or $70 a month for the site. And from that, obviously, stemmed a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, I know that, I've got one of my best friends from high school. He works for a packaging company. And, it's a small company and he works with the owner all the time. And I think the owner, he just created a website without even telling the owner. And so he was asking me for some help. But yeah, that's, there's people in companies, especially the small businesses that, they've got a lot of pull to make those decisions or move forward with things because the owner's busy, right? So, when you talk about doing the warm outreach and things like that, like that's something we're very familiar with. We used to do network marketing. It actually brings back a little bit of PTSD from those days. But if there's people who, they don't have a really good warm market, they don't know any, or maybe they've run through their entire warm market and they've kind of hit a dead end. What are some other things that they can do to reach new business? And I guess the other question I have is, does it have to be just local businesses to them? Could it be people across the state or even across the country that you're building websites for?
Good question. So yeah, what's interesting about the warm outreach thing is that we think our circles are a lot smaller than they are. But when you start to think about all the different ways in which you can be, quote unquote, connected to people, think about where you normally shop. You might be on a first name basis with the guy behind the counter at the takeout place that you normally go to. You might be bringing your kids to a gymnastics class or to other activities that, what I started doing a while back, I started taking my kids only to places that had crummy websites, just so I could have that conversation. So you have that. I sold a website to my electrician, came to my house, swapped out the panel because of a major issue. I'm standing in the driveway with the guy and I'm looking at his truck. It's got his logo on. I'm like, where's your website on your truck? And he's like, what website? I'm like, you have a website? He goes, no. I said, all right, what are you doing tomorrow at 11 a.m.? I'll show you some ideas that I could put together for a website for you. Sold a website. So the interactions, and even I'll take it a step further. I talked about a service contractor who comes to your house. What about a service contractor who comes to someone else's house? Family recently might be having a kitchen redone or some work done to their house. Find out who's doing that work for you. Oh, so-and-so company. Great. You research them, realize their online presence is junk. Now you have a sort of warm connection. Hey, when you call them up, hey, my cousin, my whatever, has hired you and you're doing work on their house right now, right? Yeah. Great. Listen, I noticed that you guys don't have a website that you could probably be super, super proud of, and I want to change that for you. Do you have some time next week? We can look at a design I have in mind for you. So the warm circle is bigger than most people think when you start to go through it. And not only that, but if you have a significant other, their network is different than yours. You may think it's the same, but it's actually different. And if they like you, if your spouse or significant other likes you, they will probably be more than happy to make some introductions or referrals to people who are just outside the immediate, circle that you hang out with all the time. And you'll be very surprised what you'll find there. But to answer your question even more directly, after you completely exhaust your warm circle, because that is a finite number of people, right? Then you can get into the cold outreach, and that's where you can really spread your wings and open up and reach out to any business, no matter where they're located. And what's cool about cold outreach is, and most people think, oh, I don't like to cold call, or I'm scared of it, or whatever. It's not all cold calling, and not for nothing, but when you know something about the business and when you have something to offer them, especially for free, it doesn't feel cold anymore. Even if you were to make that cold call. But what's cool about the cold outreach is that you can actually target specific niches. And that's, like I say, one drawback of warm outreach, because sometimes, you'll run into people like, oh yeah, I need a website for this, whatever, convoluted business or whatever. And we don't have a theme for it. And it's like, I don't even know how you build a site for that. Like you get into that situation. But what cold outreach is cool is you could find businesses specifically in the themes or industries that we have themes for. So you just go pop, right down the line, conduct these searches, and just go zip code by zip code. It's always nice to start out relatively close to where you're located, in the off chance that they do want to have a face-to-face with you, or they'll see the local phone number if you do call or text them, or just because you probably understand the local marketplace, generally speaking, better than you do in a different time zone. Time zone's another thing, right? Being able to connect with people on the same time zone as you is helpful. So the cold outreach is something that has an infinite number of possibilities in terms of who you can reach out to, specifically because not only is there a ridiculous number of businesses in the US, I think it's 40 million or 30 million or something crazy like that. It's an unfathomable number. But there's also something like 500,000 new businesses started every month. Every month. So you literally have an endless supply of potential leads And that's like people say to us, like, hey, how come you guys just don't sell sites to everybody? It's like, okay, one company cannot do this all. You just can't. There's not enough. You can't establish enough of a presence. And when you can leverage the warm relationships and then get the referrals from those warm relationships, and then you get the cold outreach and you get referrals from those people, there's so many opportunities to be had in the cold outreach space. And it may be a little bit scary at first talking to some people who you've never spoken to before, but when you realize you can actually learn something about them prior by doing 10 seconds of research online and then being able to offer them something for free to see, that becomes a much easier conversation.
I'm curious on who you find does really well as a white labeler of this, because I mean, my mind is going to like, oh, I mean, we've got a very outgoing, he will be a salesman child at some point when he gets older, and I could see him in his older teens totally crushing something like this. But I'm curious to hear who you feel like is doing typically really well with this, or who's knocking it out of the park.
So the people who come to us with any sort of sales experience or desire always will get off to the fastest start. We offer a lot of sales training, so anyone without the sales experience could very well also be just as good, if not better. But when you come to us with some prior sales experience, the ability to handle when someone says no and just shake it off in 2 seconds, the courage and the focus to be able to make those calls and ask for those sales, that will truly benefit you as a reseller. I'll also say that if you have any specific experience selling to a small business, which there are a lot of people who offer business services, bookkeeping services, accounting services, any sort of marketing service, POS systems, payment processing. There's a lot of folks in that realm. And those people, if they have even a couple of established clients that are small businesses in some way, shape, or form, it's golden. It's a perfect connection. Recently had someone who's been doing social media marketing for small businesses, managing their Facebook and their Instagram profiles for them. And they uncovered the need to offer websites because their clients were complaining that when people went to their website, they wouldn't be able to capture the lead as well. So she said, well, maybe I should be selling websites, but I've never built one before. The building is not the problem. If you have the relationships, you can sell them on a website without issue.
So I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how much money can I potentially make with something like this? Like, do you have examples of what your current white labeler people are doing? Like, how much are they making in a month, and maybe how long it took them to get there?
Absolutely. So a few stories come to mind, and we have a lot of these case studies on our website on sitesone.com. We do profile a random selection of our resellers on a regular basis because we do get that question a lot. So a few come to mind. Number one was a gentleman who joined us without prior experience and didn't sell a site for his first 6 months and was ready to throw in the towel, and then sold almost 100 sites over his next 6 months. He didn't realize it. He was planting all these seeds that were growing. And when he kept checking in on them every couple of weeks in a systematic fashion, he had all these conversions come through. And then the referrals he got from them, because he was a patient salesperson who didn't pressure them to buy a site and things like that, he was able to harvest so much out of that. I have another great story about a pastor. He moved across the country and he was seeking an opportunity where he could essentially run his own church environment. And he had to take a significant pay cut because of the fact that he was moving into a different part of the country that just didn't pay as well. And let's be honest, you're not in the ministry business for the money. So, but he realized that he needed to better support his family. So he was always kind of someone who tinkered around online, but never actually built a site. And inside of, I think 3 months, he had 20 something sites on the books. And I believe has surpassed the 60 mark as of very recent. That's all inside of a year. We have other folks who will sell just enough for what they need for their specific goal. That's the thing we got to think about too, is that everyone has a different definition of success. So your definition of what a side hustle or something else on the side, or a hobby or project or whatever, you have a different definition than I do, as the person down the block, as our cousins and neighbors and friends and everybody else. So this takes me back to a woman who joined us with the specific goal of being able to pay for her child's education. The local school district was the Pitts, and there was this private school that she really wanted to send her daughter to. And she said, well, my thing is I've got to make about $2,500 a month in order for this to work and make sense for me. That's what I'm doing this for. And boy, when you have a clear vision of, I think I mentioned it earlier, why you're doing this and who you're doing it for, it allows you to really get laser focused on what you have to do to get to that goal. There's a quote that goes something along the lines of, without specific goals, you get very non-specific results. And what it means is that if you don't have a clear picture of what you're aiming for, you don't have a way to aim for it. So this is someone who was coming in the door and said, my level of success is $2,500. And the amazing part about it, which I still bug her all the time about, is that she got to that goal and then stopped. And she did it relatively quickly. I mean, inside of a year, in the grand scheme, actually, it was less than that. But anyway, she got to that point and then she didn't even log in. And I was bugging. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You've got all these sites in a relatively short period of time. Sites are beautiful. People seem to love you. Why stop? And she goes, I did what I needed to do. Now I'm focusing back on my job and I'm just going to head down and work on my career. It's like, okay, I guess. So it's different for everybody.
Yeah. So when you talk about 100 sites or 60 sites or however many it is, how much are people making per site? Do they control their own pricing, or do you have a suggested pricing? How does that work? How much are they actually making with this?
Yeah, people can charge whatever they want. We do have suggested minimum pricing, and what that means is that if you don't charge enough, you're not going to sell any sites. And you might say, that sounds crazy, Justin. Why would that be? Because people won't take you seriously. If you're selling sites for $9 a month, they're like, what the heck am I going to get for $9 a month? So what you really have to do on a minimum price point is about $500 up front and about $50 per month. That would be what I consider the minimum. I don't suggest anyone starts out below that, but we have plenty of people who are charging over $1,000, over $2,000 for the sites, for the markets that it works well for, and over $100 a month just for the site itself. And I don't want to minimize and say just for the site, because there's a lot that comes with the site. You're going to offer the support. You're going to offer an SEO element, which is all built in. You're going to offer the SSL certificate, of course, the reliable cloud hosting. The list goes on and on of what that package looks like. It's an all-inclusive package, essentially, for the website. So when we're talking about people who are selling 100 sites or more, and we have plenty of people over 500, over 1,000 sites that they're managing, and for the most part, it's single-handedly, because the cool thing about website sales to small businesses is that they have kind of a set it and forget it mentality. So once you've got the site sold, as long as you are pinging them on a regular basis, as long as they like you, as long as the site's performing, which it will, and as long as nothing's broken about it, which it won't be, then you will have this client for a very long time. So that's when we say recurring revenue. And I don't want to call it passive income because I hate that terminology, although I know a lot of people, it resonates with them. But the idea is that I don't want to oversimplify it essentially. A lot of people do call it passive income, but I prefer to just talk about recurring income. Because I think any business where you don't have a recurring income aspect to it is a very difficult business to predict the longevity of and the sustainability of. So if you're talking about 100 sites, that is a round number. That's what our pro plan comes with. The math there is quite simple. It's $5,000 a month. If you're charging more per site, then obviously it goes up from there. But even, that's the thing, like we say, like our plan that most people start with is like $200 a month. To be able to make that back, first of all, if you sell a site with a $500 setup fee, you've already made your first 2 months plus. And then for each site that you sell, once you get to number 4, you're in the black. So it's really not something that we have designed to be prohibitively difficult to get to a point of profitability with, because we understand that when people are looking to start a side business or a side hustle or any business for that matter, people don't want to expend a lot to be able to see results. We have a lot of people who look at franchise opportunities while also looking at what we offer, and they'll say, wow, I was seriously considering taking money out of my 401k in my retirement to make a $30,000 investment in this whatever franchise. And that's like the minimum you can spend on a franchise. But wow, for a couple $100s a month, this makes a heck of a lot more sense because I can get to that point of cash flow sooner.
Yeah, and I was going to say with the franchising, I don't even know what you can get for 30,000. It's the ones that I know that we were looking at way back when, and this was like in 2012, 2013 when we really first started thinking about building a business. It's 50, 100,000 minimum, or even more than that. And then when you look at the income projections, it was like, after 5 years, you might be making $50,000. And it's like, well, that's less than I make at my job, right? It's just ridiculous. I mean, that's why something like this makes so much more sense. Now, they can charge $500,000 up front plus $50, $100 a month. How much of that do you take? Or is there just a subscription fee? What do they have to pay to be able to sell that?
Yeah, so we don't put our hands in our clients' pockets. And we often get the question of how do you guys make money? And the short answer is that we are just collecting a flat monthly fee based on the number of sites that you need in your account. So like most people come to us and they choose a plan that has 20 sites in it for $200 a month. So your cost there is essentially $10 a month per site. And then they can turn around and sell those sites for anything they want. And as you progress, our next plan is $300 a month. And then you get 5 times the number of sites. You get 100 sites. So your price drops a little bit down to $3 per month per site, which is crazy. So we don't have any other means to charge our clients. And if a software guy were to hear me say that, they'd be like, you're crazy. How could you not be charging more per event that people make money on? It's like, well, because we want to do things. We want to just cover our costs, essentially. We're not trying to take from what you're doing. Like I would rather you have a success story and be able to talk openly about your experience with SiteSwan than just make some extra money from you. Because the value that you bring to our company, being able to brag about your experience, is much, much greater than the couple extra bucks that we could be charging you for every site that you launch. So that's the way we structure it, and we felt it was a fair approach, and we actually haven't raised our prices since our inception. So we've been pretty dedicated to our clients and being able to make a true business for themselves.
I think this is a really interesting model. I think what you're doing sounds so cool. I think there's probably a lot of people that could benefit from this. And I appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
My pleasure. It's been great having the platform to do so. And I appreciate both of you making the time to chat with me.
So Justin, for everybody who's listening and you've very effectively piqued their curiosity now, and they want to go snoop around and see if this might be for them or for one of their loved ones, where should they go?
Well, they can head over to our website, siteswan.com. But I did put something together a while back that I thought might be helpful based on our conversation, actually. I talked about the show and sell technique. So I put together a sort of ebook on how I built a 6-figure web design agency using that show and sell technique. And I spoke earlier that I like to give stuff away about and educate about how we recommend doing things. So I've actually created a link on my site that if people would go to, they could access that download absolutely for free. And it's at my site, which is justingerena.com. That's GERENA.com/digital-trailblazer.
Awesome. And we'll have the links to everything that he's talking about in the show notes and description. Thank you so much, Justin. This has been awesome.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.